Welcome back to SteelersFix Daily. And I know, this isn't exactly how we wanted to be talking after the home opener at Acrisure Stadium. The scoreboard says 31-17 Seahawks over Steelers. The energy that was buzzing through the city before kickoff? Yeah, it turned to frustration by the end. That's sports, right? That's Pittsburgh football. We ride the highs, and we feel every single low. But let me set the tone right now. We're not going to sit here and wallow. We're not going to throw up our hands like it's the end of the world. This is week 2, people. Week 2. There's a long season ahead, and if you look closely, there were plenty of positives sprinkled throughout this game. And that's what we're going to dig into. Because here's the thing. This kind of September football, this sloppy, mistake-filled, injury-riddled mess, it's happening all over the league. Look around. Kansas City, the defending AFC champs, are sitting at 0-2. Joe Burrow and the Bengals might not even have him for most of the season. Half the NFL is sitting at 1-1 just like we are. Baltimore, Detroit, Minnesota, all in the same spot. So if you're a Steelers fan panicking because of one September loss, pump the brakes. We're right in the thick of things, not behind the 8 ball. And let's be honest, this wasn't some total collapse. For 3 quarters, the Steelers were very much in this football game. The defense fought, the offense had flashes, and even after the brutal special teams gaffe, the game was within reach. That matters. That tells you this team, even on an off day, is still dangerous. Now let's talk about Mike Tomlin. You know the man. He doesn't sugarcoat, he doesn't make excuses, and he doesn't blink. After the game, he summed it up perfectly. Certainly a disappointing home opener. There's a lot of things that we can do better in all phases and in coaching, and we will. That's vintage Tomlin. No panic, no finger pointing, just straight up accountability. And he nailed it when he talked about how this game mirrored week 1. Against the Jets, a special teams play broke it open in our favor. Against Seattle, a special teams play broke it open the other way. That's the razor-thin margin in this league. That's NFL football. The play he was talking about? That kickoff in the 4th quarter. Rookie Caleb Johnson lets it bounce, doesn't field it in the landing zone, and by the time it rolled into the end zone, Seattle pounced for a touchdown. A rookie mistake? Sure. A painful one? But here's the deal. Tomlin said they rep that exact situation every single day of their lives. Johnson will learn. He'll take his lumps. That's what September is for. Better to have that teaching moment now than in December with the playoffs on the line. And that's where I want Steelers Nation to shift its mindset. September football is about growth. It's about identifying flaws, getting tape, and correcting them. You don't win championships in September. You survive it. You build the foundation. And if you've been following this team for years, you know the pattern. Tomlin coach squads often take a couple weeks to really find their stride. And when they do, watch out. Now quarterback play. Let's be real. Aaron Rodgers looked mortal in this one. Week 1, he's a superhero. 4 touchdown passes against the Jets, showing why this move to Pittsburgh had the entire fan base fired up. Week 2, he comes back down to earth. 1 touchdown, 2 picks, 3 sacks, and a whole lot of running for his life behind shaky protection. Not the stat line you want. But here's where Rodgers is different. He doesn't flinch. He stood at that podium and delivered exactly the perspective you want from your quarterback. That's the league. You can't ride the highs or the lows. You have to refocus every single week and be a professional. That's Rodgers. That's why he's here. Not just to throw dimes, but to steady the ship. Think about it. This guy has seen everything in this league. MVP seasons, playoff heartbreaks, Super Bowl glory. He knows that September doesn't define your season. And when your quarterback is saying, don't panic, don't get too high, don't get too low, you better believe the locker room listens. Veterans hear it. Young guys hear it. That voice carries. And look, even with Rodgers having an off day, even with the O-line springing leaks, even with the defense gassed and short-handed, the Steelers were still within 1 score in the 4th quarter, down 24-17 with under 4 minutes left. Still alive. That's not nothing. That's not a disaster. That's a team that fought through mistakes and still had a chance late. So as frustrated as fans might be, and trust me, I'm right there with you, yelling at the TV during that botched kickoff, you've got to zoom out. This is week 2. Across the NFL, everyone's banged up, everyone's sloppy, everyone's adjusting. The Steelers are 1-1. They're in the thick of the AFC hunt. And now, they've got clear areas to fix. Protect Rodgers better, shore up the run defense, eliminate mental lapses on special teams. Those are fixable. That's coaching, that's reps. So take a deep breath, Steelers Nation. It's not all doom and gloom. In fact, if you look closer, there's plenty of silver linings. And that's what we're going to break down for the rest of this podcast. The bright spots, the players who flashed, and why this team has the pieces to bounce back strong. All right, let's dive into the positives, starting with the guy who carried the load on offense and made it clear he's the heartbeat of this unit, Jaylen Warren. All right, Steelers Nation, let's get into the good stuff. Because yeah, this game was a loss, but if you actually watched it with a fan's eye, there were plenty of bright spots to take away. And we're going to start with the man who absolutely put the offense on his back, Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren is flat out becoming a star. You look at the stat sheet, 14 carries for 48 yards, 4 catches for 86 yards, 134 total yards from scrimmage. That's more than half of the Steelers' entire offensive production on Sunday. Think about that. One guy basically carried the load. And it wasn't just the numbers, it was how he did it. The play that everyone's talking about, that 65-yard catch and run, Rodgers dumps it off short, and Warren just takes off like a man possessed. Broke tackles, made guys miss, refused to go down. That's what separates him. He's not just a guy who takes what's blocked, he creates. He wills yards out of plays that look dead. That's star stuff. And the way he runs, man, you can feel it through the TV. He's got that angry runner vibe, that determination where you just know defenders hate tackling him. It's very reminiscent of old school Steelers backs who made their mark not just with yards, but with tone-setting toughness. You give Jaylen Warren the rock, and he's sending a message. We're not backing down. I'll tell you what else stands out. Rodgers trusts him, you can see it. When the pocket collapses, when receivers aren't getting separation, who's he looking for? Warren. That chemistry is building fast, and it's a weapon that's only going to grow as the season goes on. Now moving on, let's talk about Broderick Jones. Because after week 1, man, fans were lighting him up. 3 sacks allowed, 4 pressures, it was ugly. And to his credit, Jones didn't duck it. He faced the media and said flat out, just a bad game. Gotta grow from it. That's accountability. That's maturity. And guess what? Against Seattle, he did grow. He looked better, more composed, more confident in his sets. He wasn't perfect, but you could see the adjustments. That's what you want from a young left tackle protecting Aaron Rodgers' blind side. Learn from your mistakes and come back stronger. It's a process, but the arrow is pointing up. And fans remember, developing a franchise left tackle is never smooth sailing. You've got to live with some bumps along the way. The good news? Jones showed he's learning, and that's all you can ask in week 2. This kid has the size, the athleticism, and now we're seeing the mental resilience. That's a building block for the future. Now here's one that got me fired up. Darnell Washington finally got a red zone look. Finally. We've been talking about this since he was drafted. The guy is a 6'7", 270-pound mismatch waiting to happen. And against Seattle, the coaching staff finally dialed him up on a 2-point conversion attempt. Did it change the game? Number. But you know what it did? It sent a message. It told us the staff is starting to realize what they've got. Washington isn't just a blocker. He's a weapon. He's a guy who can box out defenders like a power forward in the paint. And in a red zone offense that's had its ups and downs, sprinkling Washington into those packages could be a game changer. That's the kind of thing that pays off in November and December when games get tight. And speaking of game changers, let's talk Jalen Ramsey. This dude just continues to deliver splash plays in black and gold. 6 tackles, an interception, 2 passes defended, and this comes on the heels of week 1, where he was already making his presence felt. Ramsey looks rejuvenated, man. He looks like a guy who came to Pittsburgh to win and is playing with an edge. Think about the context here. With Joey Porter Jr. out, Ramsey stepped up as the alpha corner. And he didn't just hold the fort, he made plays. That's what separates him. You can't just plug anyone into that spot and expect results, but Ramsey thrives in that pressure role. And for a defense that's been banged up, his ability to swing momentum is priceless. Now let's give some love to the big fella, Cam Heyward. What more can you say about this guy? He's 36 years old and still wrecking plays like it's 2016. Against Seattle, he batted a pass that turned into a Nick Herbig interception. That's textbook Cam. Doesn't matter if he's double-teamed, doesn't matter if he's fighting through pain, he finds a way to impact the game. Heyward is the heartbeat of this defense. When young guys like Jack Sawyer and Peyton Wilson see him making those effort plays, it sets the tone. That's leadership. That's culture. That's what being a Pittsburgh Steeler is all about. And let me tell you, as long as Cam Heyward is on this roster, the standard isn't going anywhere. And speaking of young guys stepping up, how about the depth? Jack Sawyer with 5 tackles, 2 for loss, and a sack. Nick Herbig not just making tackles, but grabbing that interception off Heyward's deflection. Peyton Wilson fighting through fatigue and still racking up stops. These are rookies and second-year guys being thrown into the fire because of injuries, and they're producing. That's huge. Look, injuries are part of this game. The Steelers were already down 3 starters before kickoff and then lost Loudermilk and Highsmith during the game. That's brutal, but the fact that the next men up didn't fold, that they made impact plays, that tells you the depth on this roster is real. That tells you this defense has the legs to hold up through a long season. So when you zoom out and look at the positives, Warren emerging as a star, Jones showing growth, Washington finally being used as a red zone weapon, Ramsey making splash plays, Heyward proving he's timeless, and the young depth stepping up when called upon. That's a lot to feel good about coming out of a Week 2 loss. We'll get into the areas that still need fixing, the run defense, the pass protection, those mental errors. But man, don't ignore the positives here. This isn't a roster that's falling apart. This is a roster that's learning, building, and getting contributions from all corners. That's what you want in September. All right, coming up, we'll talk about those areas that do need fixing. Because as much as there were positives, there are also some recurring issues that can't be ignored, especially the run defense and keeping Rodgers upright. We'll dive into that next. All right, Steelers Nation, we've hit the positives. Now let's flip the script and talk about the issues that have to get cleaned up if this team wants to make a real push this year. And listen, we're going to be real about it, because that's what fans do. We celebrate the good, but we're not blind to the problems. Still, we're going to keep perspective, because every issue we're about to talk about, it's fixable. Let's start with the run defense. Now on the stat sheet, it actually looked better than Week 1. Against the Jets, we gave up 182 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. Against Seattle, it was 117 yards and just 1 rushing score. That's progress. That's something to hang your hat on. But then you look at the timing of those runs, and that's where the frustration kicks in. Think about the dagger play. Late fourth quarter, Seahawks leading 24-17, 3rd and goal from the 19-yard line. You're thinking they're just going to set up for a field goal, take the safe points. Instead, Kenneth Walker bounces it outside, and boom, 19-yard touchdown. That was the backbreaker. And that's what TJ Watt was talking about after the game when he said, "The first note every single week is smash the run. We're always trying to smash the run, and it's not a lack of trying. But we need to look in the mirror, and we need to turn over every stone, because this can't continue to happen." That's leadership. That's honesty. And he's right. You can't keep letting these backbreaking runs happen at critical moments. But here's the thing. This isn't a talent issue. It's not like the Steelers don't have the guys up front. Keanu Benton, Cam Heyward, Yeha Black, these are talented dudes. It's about discipline, gap control, and finishing plays. Those are things that can be fixed with coaching and reps. And let's be real, this isn't the first time a Steelers team has had run defense issues early in the season. Go back to past years, September football is always messy, and by mid-season, this defense usually tightens up. I'm betting on that happening again. especially with veterans like Watt and Heyward demanding accountability. Now let's move to the offensive line and pass protection. If there's one thing that's been consistent through 2 weeks, it's that Rodgers has been under siege. Against the Jets, 4 sacks and 7 hits. Against Seattle, 3 sacks and 9 hits. That's too much. That's how quarterbacks get hurt, and that's how drives stall out. And yet, Rodgers is still standing in there, making throws, taking shots. The guy is 41 years old and playing like he's still got something to prove. That's guts. But if this offense wants to truly click, they've got to keep him upright. And again, this is something that's fixable, because we saw Broderick Jones improve. We saw Isaac Sumalo and Zach Frazier start to gel a little more. Chemistry on the offensive line takes time, and we're only 2 weeks into this thing. And don't forget, last year's offensive line wasn't exactly a finished product in September either. It took weeks before they found their groove. By mid-season, they were moving people off the ball and giving Aaron Rodgers clean pockets. So history tells us it's coming. It's just about getting there faster this time because the stakes are higher with Rodgers back there. Now let's hit special teams, because honestly, this is where the game swung. That kickoff mistake, rookie Caleb Johnson leaving the ball live in the end zone, that's one of those what are we doing moments. And Tomlin said it himself. Poor judgment by a young player. That's a situation we cover every day of our lives. And he's right. That's not a scheme issue. That's not a coaching issue. That's just a rookie mistake. And while it's frustrating, it's also part of the growing pains. Johnson will learn. He'll never let that happen again. And if you think about it, last week against the Jets, it was special teams that swung the game in our favor. That's life in the NFL. Some weeks, you're on the right side of the breaks. Some weeks, you're not. The key is minimizing the mistakes so the breaks don't decide the game. Now, let's circle back to Rodgers and the offense, because one of the other things we saw was the red zone execution dip. Against the Jets, we were money inside the 20. Against Seattle, not so much. Twice we got into the red zone, and once we walked away with nothing because of that tipped interception. That's the kind of thing that changes a game. And Rodgers owned it. He said after the game, "I look at myself first. If we're settling for field goals, I probably wasn't effective enough in those situations. That's what leaders do. They take the blame, even when it's not all on them." But here's where I stay positive. Red zone execution is also fixable. You've got weapons in Warren, Freiermuth, Washington, and Rodgers is one of the best at controlling tempo and matchups down there. It's just a matter of cleaning up the details. Here's another thing I'll point out. For as much as this offense struggled, they still managed to generate chunk plays. 3 of them to be exact. Warren's 65-yarder, Calvin Austin's 22-yarder, and Freiermuth's 20-yarder down the sideline. Not enough, but they're there. And that tells me this offense is capable of exploding at any time. The seeds are planted. It's about protecting Rodgers long enough to let those plays develop. So let's recap the issues. Run defense, pass protection, special teams execution, and red zone finishing. Those are the 4 big ones. And yes, they hurt us against Seattle. But none of those are fatal flaws. None of those are things you can't fix. They're correctable. And that's the key takeaway. If this was a team getting blown off the ball in the trenches with no answer, I'd be worried. If this was a roster with no depth stepping up, I'd be worried. If Rodgers looked lost, I'd be worried. But that's not what's happening here. What we've got is a team that's 1 or 2 corrections away from putting it all together. And when you combine that with the positives we talked about earlier, Warren's emergence, Broderick Jones bouncing back, Ramsey making splash plays, Cam Heyward still being Cam, you realize this loss isn't the end of the world. It's a reminder of where we need to sharpen up, and September is the perfect time to sharpen up. All right, Steelers Nation. In the final segment, we're going to zoom out even further. We're going to talk big picture, where this team stands in the AFC after 2 weeks, why other teams are in even worse spots, and why optimism is still the right vibe heading into Week 3. Let's finish this thing strong. All right, Steelers Nation, let's take a step back and talk about the big picture, because it's really easy after a home opener loss like this one to feel like the sky is falling. You leave Acrisure Stadium frustrated, you scroll through social media, you hear people questioning everything from Rodgers to the offensive line to Tomlin's coaching. It's noise. But when you zoom out, the reality looks very different. First of all, this team is sitting at 1-1. 1 win, 1 loss. Half the league is right there with us. Baltimore, 1-1. Detroit, 1-1. Minnesota, 1-1. Even the Kansas City Chiefs, the defending AFC champs, they're 0-2. And Cincinnati, our division rival, the team everyone said we'd be chasing, might have just lost Joe Burrow for most of the season. That's huge. The AFC North is wide open. You think Ravens fans feel good about barely squeaking out a win in Week 1 and then getting punched in the mouth Week 2? You think Browns fans are sleeping well at night with Joe Flacco still looking like a shell of what he used to be? Please, the whole division is messy. And the Steelers, even with this loss, are right in the thick of it. That's the thing about September football. It's chaos. Every team has injuries. Every team has blown assignments. Every team has rookies making rookie mistakes. The key isn't being perfect now. It's being healthy and sharp when it matters most. That's November. That's December. That's playoff football. And let's be honest, this roster has the pieces to do exactly that. You've got Aaron Rodgers, a Hall of Fame quarterback who isn't rattled by early season bumps. You've got Jaylen Warren emerging as one of the most dynamic backs in the AFC. You've got Jalen Ramsey coming up with splash plays like it's second nature. You've got Cam Heyward still out there defying father time. And you've got young guys like Jack Sawyer, Nick Herbig, and Peyton Wilson stepping up when called upon. That's the recipe for growth. That's the recipe for a team that gets better as the season goes on. Now let's talk about the mindset. Because Rodgers said it best after the game, you can't ride the highs or the lows. You have to refocus every single week. That's wisdom. That's experience. And that's exactly the mentality this locker room needs. After Week 1, people were crowning us. After Week 2, people are doubting us. Both reactions are wrong. The truth is in the middle. This is a team that's still finding itself, and when it does, look out. Here's the other thing fans forget. Injuries heal. Joey Porter Jr. will be back. Deshaun Elliott will be back. Derek Harmon will be back. Highsmith's ankle will recover. By mid-season, this defense will be closer to full strength, and that's when you'll really see the potential of this group. Imagine Ramsey and Porter locking down the corners with Watt and Highsmith screaming off the edge and Heyward wrecking shop in the middle. That's the vision, and it's coming. And hey, let's not act like the sky is falling because of one botched kickoff. That was a rookie mistake. It happens. Caleb Johnson will learn, and he'll be better for it. Steelers football has always been about next man up, learn from it, and keep moving forward. The kid will bounce back. Now let's look ahead. We've got a long schedule left, and every week is another chance to reset. That's the beauty of the NFL. One week you're flying high, the next week you're humbled. But it's never permanent. It's about what you do next. And this Steelers team has the leadership and the talent to respond the right way. So here's my message to Steelers Nation. Stay patient, stay loud, and stay proud. This is Pittsburgh. We don't throw in the towel after Week 2. We don't abandon ship because of a couple of mistakes. We know the standard. And like Tomlin always says, the standard is the standard. I promise you, this team is going to bounce back. Warren's only going to get stronger. Rodgers is only going to get more comfortable with his weapons. The O-line is going to gel. The run defense will tighten up. And when this group puts it all together, you'll look back at this Week 2 loss as just a speed bump on the road to bigger things. So hold your heads up, Steelers fans. We've got a long season ahead. There's plenty of football left, plenty of chances to prove the doubters wrong, and plenty of reason to believe this team is going to be in the thick of the AFC race when it counts. Here we go, Steelers Nation. Shake it off, reset, and get ready for Week 3. Because this ride is just getting started. And that's going to do it for this episode of SteelersFix Daily. Thanks for hanging with me as we broke down the loss to Seattle, looked at the positives, and put the bigger picture in perspective. Make sure you're following us on all platforms. Check out SteelersFix.com for the full article, and hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Until next time, this is Steelers Fix signing off. Here we go.